Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video. Hello and welcome to my new video. So I'm Brandon, as per usual, and in today's video I'm going to be explaining to you how you can write the perfect placement report. Now, I'm currently a university student, so the way that we've been taught may be slightly different to how a college student or a sixth form student would write a placement report, but this is just a template for the sorts of things that you should include. Now, firstly, some of you might be sitting here thinking, what is a placement report? When am I ever going to need to use one of those? And honestly, that's exactly the same mindset I had before I actually completed my first placement. Now, a placement report is pretty much just a document with maximum of 3,000 words to just give the pros and the cons of the placement that you worked at, what your aims and objectives were, how you found this particular placement, and just a bit more information about you and how you work as an individual person. So you don't necessarily need to do it after every job you've had, but if it's a placement where you've been there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, it sometimes is just nice to write a report, and sometimes your supervisors will ask you to make a placement report. Now, without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the planning for how you can write the best report possible. And obviously, these are all my views and opinions. So if there's anything you'd like to question or anything you'd like to know more about, all of the views and opinions in this video are mine. So if anybody has any questions or any information that they'd like to add on to anything I've said, I'm more than happy for you to comment on this video and I will get back to as many people as I can. Now, without further ado, and with all of that said and done, let's get straight into what makes a placement report a good one. So the first thing that I would include, as with any book or magazine that you would read, a title page. Now, it doesn't need to be anything too colourful or too drastic. It just needs to be something simple with your first name and surname, your student number if that's applicable, the date that you wrote the report, who the report is for, a suitable title for that report, and any graphics and images that are suitable. So for example, I worked at a toy company and most of my roles included taking pictures, editing videos, editing podcasts, making blog posts, taking control of social media, and obviously I just included some of the pictures I had from my placement and pictures that were taken of me at the placement as just a few of those pictures to just start with on the title page, as well as the name of the supervisor that I had who pretty much accepted me into the said placement. The next page that I would recommend thinking about is the contents. Now, again, as with a book and a magazine, I keep using that as the example, but it's the best way to think about it. The contents page basically just outlines the structure for your report. So what are you going to be talking about and on which page or pages is it going to be featured on? It makes it easier for you as the writer. So if there's anything you need to change, to add, to remove, you know exactly which page to go back to, but it also makes it easier for the reader so that if they want to look at a particular section or if they're not too bothered about one particular section, they can easily skip it and they won't miss out any other information that you've written about. Other content ideas, sections numbered and obviously show the pages they can be found. That's basically what I just said, including a list of images and illustrations. This pretty much just livens it up a little bit rather than just words, and include a list of your appendices. Now, an appendice is something that's evidence of you completing your particular placement, but we will get onto that slightly later on in this video. Now, you don't have to have a summary page, but it is nice to sometimes include one. It doesn't need to be anything, again, too extravagant, just something quite simple. Introduce the subject of the report, so a work placement or a work experience, the report's purpose, so why are you writing the report, what was done for your placement, so background information for the company, who the company is, maybe how you found the company, and detail your main outcomes for the placement. So what were you expecting to achieve? Why did you apply for that particular placement? And when you got accepted, what were you hoping for to come out of that particular placement? Now, if we go on to the actual report itself, the first page you would need to think about is the introduction page. Now, on the introduction page, I would just include aims and objectives for the report. So again, similarly to what I said before, what are you aiming to get out of writing this placement report? Why has the placement report been written? What will it achieve? And then any background information on either yourself, the company, or reports that you've known on in the past. And then we get onto the main body. So the main substance of the report, and you'll obviously list them under your subheadings. So there are a variety of different subheadings, and obviously some of them you could separate, some of them you could put together, but these are just some of the most important ones, or some that you should think about including. Subsection 1 is your academic and your personal learning. So how has the placement enhanced your academic knowledge, learning, and the application of that knowledge to that particular workplace? Your academic skills are reflecting on what you've learned. Will it benefit you when working for a client or an organization in the future? Have you learned anything from it? So have you been taught how to edit, how to do modeling, how to use a camera, for example? And your personal learning, has it helped you develop skills such as leadership or confidence? Are you able to work better in a group as opposed to just as an individual? And again, with this particular section, 1.5 pages is more than enough information here. Subsection 2 is your career management. So how has the placement developed your self-reliance and career management in order to boost your career potential? So have you been able to rely on yourself, or have you had to rely on other people to give you work and to tell you what to do? Or have you pretty much done it yourself? And obviously you have to think about future jobs and the fact that a lot of jobs in the future for you will be things that you have to do independently. So are you able to adapt to those particular circumstances? And the career management, I think that's in terms of networking, becoming more confident in yourself, motivating yourself to work hard, and managing the career basically that you want to go into in the future. So that work experience that you did for those couple of weeks, is that the industry you'd want to go into, or actually have you worked out that that's not the industry you want to go into and then you'll look elsewhere for work? So subsection 3 is the work culture. So how has the placement increased your understanding for how organizations work and the relative benefits for different work cultures? So how different organizations work could be in terms of small organizations as opposed to big organizations. The particular work placement that you were working in, is it different to maybe the work that your friends were doing? So obviously you guys can sit down, you can compare, and then you can work out the pros and cons of both. And the relative benefits for different work cultures, that's just you being able to settle into different groups of people. Are you better in small offices, big offices? Are you better in a remote city like London or a smaller city like Leicester, for example, and just working out what is the best work culture or work environment for you. Subsection 4 is people skills. So has the placement increased your range of people, team, and client skills, being able to learn from individuals in a range of work situations? So I think with any placement, you will obviously increase your range of people, because if you didn't go to that placement, you wouldn't have met those people. But now you've gone there, you've got a few extra contacts. I think in terms of team and client skills, that obviously varies from placement to placement. You'll be working in particular teams, working on particular things, and obviously those people are going to be your go-to for help, go-to for asking for extra work, or going to for assistance. And in terms of being able to learn from individuals, one thing I've always said is that when you're working in a real life environment, you are with people from all different backgrounds of life, all different ethnicities, genders, sexualities, ages, people from completely different places in the world. And obviously when everyone comes together to put ideas together, everyone has a little bit of good, and then it makes some massive change within that particular company. So even with your tiny little bit of input for those couple of weeks, something you say or something you do can benefit that company. Stepping your toe into the water and getting that placement opportunity is definitely something beneficial for the company. And obviously it's nice to include that sort of thing in the placement report, because then you can say, actually, before I took part in the placement, they weren't doing X, Y, and Z, but since I've left, they've actually implemented X, Y, and Z into their company. Subsection 5 of the placement report is organizational awareness and skills. So how has the placement helped increase your general and specialist skills that are transferable to broader work contexts? So the difference between general and specialist skills, general skills are just things that anyone can have. So leadership, confidence, hardworking, time management. Specialist skills are skills that are special to you as a person. Obviously, a lot of people, again, will still have those skills, but they're particular skills in terms of the particular industry you want to go into. So my general skills are being able to talk to new people, being able to manage my time effectively, being able to juggle 101 different projects at once. But my specialist skills are being able to edit pictures, take pictures, put vlogs together, use editing software, those sorts of things. So my specialist skills are more technical and are more related to the industry I want to go into, which is media. And finally, subsection 6 is your personal impact. So to the extent of which you added value to the organisation through completing your placement. Now, when it says adding value, it doesn't necessarily mean adding value in terms of money, but adding value as in, if, for example, you were helping with social media takeovers, any tweets that you put out, any Instagram stories you upload, it's better that you've put them out than having not put them out. So the fact that you've actually put those tweets out and the fact that you've put those Instagram stories out, you're likely to get more engagement back on those. Therefore, you are adding value to the company. And any extra promotion through pictures or videos or word of mouth, speaking to your friends about the company you're working at, that is all adding value to the company, because if you didn't mention those things, if you didn't tweet about or tell people about where you were working, they obviously wouldn't know about the company until it got humongous. But any small little things that you do, they could end up speaking about in a meeting between the managers or the heads of the office and actually implement some of the changes that you mentioned or that you brought up. So the next section is the conclusions. So to conclude with the content of the report on your work experience. So in this section, it's all about drawing it all together. So all of the points that you've included from the introduction to the summary page to all the different subsections, just drawing everything together, including the main points of your report and just summarizing those, giving an overview, explaining your main conclusions from the experience. So from the experience, I have learned that X, Y, Z. From this experience, I have learned that this is not, or this is the industry I'd like to go into because X, Y, Z. And obviously here you don't want to introduce any new information because it will completely confuse the reader. They want to just see you've analysed things that you've already written. If there's something new that you want to add, obviously, by all means, add it slightly beforehand and then analyse it here. Don't add it when you're concluding your report. The next section is the recommendations. So a recommendation is something that follows on from the conclusion. So you've concluded X, Y, and Z. So what are you going to do next? So most placement reports have about 3 to 5 of actions or things that you should note to yourself about how you're going to action those conclusions once you've finished the work experience, explaining what course of action you'll take, ensuring those recommendations follow on from the conclusions, and they should be specific, measurable, and achievable. Now, for example, one of my recommendations was, so I did my placement at a media industry company, and I concluded that actually I liked working in a small environment, but there wasn't much work for me to do. And it was sort of once I finished the work, I couldn't really ask for anything else because there wasn't anything else to do. So my recommendation would probably be to research jobs or work placements that have slightly larger offices, because then 1, that's more contacts, 2, you're able to network with more people, and 3, if someone's ill, for example, you've definitely got some work that you are able to do, as opposed to just pretty much sitting there eating a sandwich, like not knowing what to do with your life. So that was one of my recommendations. And then one of the other things about recommendations is just making sure that they're numbered or that they're in an easy to read list. The worst thing about recommendations is if you write 3 sentences and people aren't sure whether that's 3 different recommendations or it's 1 recommendation, but just really, really elongated. So that's just one thing I would recommend including on your recommendations. Split them up, have number 1, number 2, number 3, or just have them easily bullet pointed so you know exactly which one's what. The next section of your report is the appendices. Now, I told you before I was going to bring these back up again. So an appendix is just material that supports your report. It's just extra evidence that you have completed that particular placement or work experience, and you're just adding it in just because it's extra evidence. It's not usually included in the word count of maximum 3,000, but it's good to include information and extra evidence that you think the reader will want to read or will want to know about. So if we speak about the compulsory ones, you've got material detailing, evidencing your log of hours and timesheet. So that's just you confirming the times, dates, that you're actually completing that work experience or work placement for. Compulsory Appendix 2 is timeline or diary of work experience. So again, that's in terms of what you did personally. So like a normal diary, just saying, oh, on this day, my objectives or my aims were to do X, Y, or Z. We ended up doing this, and you could even conclude each day if you wanted to, like a little summary of did it go well, did it not go well. And compulsory appendix number 3 is a copy of the reference from your placement supervisor or employer. Now, this could be like the way I did it, whether you want to get a LinkedIn reference, or you could actually get them to fill in a professional piece of paper stating the hours that you did, confirming the hours that you did, and then just saying whether you were good, bad, etc. Hopefully good. And other appendices that are allowed, but they're optional, are background information on the placement provider. So maybe giving a bit of background information on the organisation's website, if there's a job hierarchy structure, the particular people that work there, the type of organisation they are, any photos or videos from the placement or work experience that you undertook, any examples of work that you produced. If it's a video, maybe a YouTube link. If it's photos, maybe printed photos out or a sketchbook or something. A press release, for example, but obviously make sure that you have permission to use those on the placement report. The details of how you set up the placement. So was it through an email? Was it through a job application? Was it through the website? Include a copy of your CV and cover letter if you've got, and any other evidence as appropriate to the content of the report. And in order to finalise the report, you can either convert it to a PDF or a Word document, label the file with your name and your student number, and obviously upload it to the shared drive where your lecturer or your supervisor will be able to see it. Now, in terms of placement reports, that is pretty much it. I just thought I'd do a quick little podcast / creative video about that. And yeah, I feel like placement reports are very, very important, because it's all well and good doing a couple of weeks working somewhere or volunteering your time somewhere, but if you can't reflect on the good points, the bad points, and give yourself those recommendations to how to get more jobs and placements in the future, there's not really much point completing those work placements. And I found the more work placements and work experiences I've taken part in, the more confident I get as a person, and the more employable I feel like I'm getting, because obviously I'm getting more and more experience. So the work experience I'm applying for needs someone with more and more experience. So it just sort of makes sense that not only am I growing, but I'm also applying for things that I know I've got a better chance of actually getting. So yeah, I will wrap this podcast / video up here. If you did enjoy it, obviously don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will be with you for another podcast or video very, very soon. So until then, thank you for listening, and goodbye.